Hello, you're listening to the IoT Weekly Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the IoT Weekly Podcast, brought to you by GearForge Software. My name is Zeineb and I'm joined by my co-hosts and good friends, Cliff and Matthew. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Sorry, go ahead, Matthew.
I'm doing great.
I am too. It is just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's awfully hot though. I know that we didn't have an episode last week, so
What?
tell us. Yeah, I know.
What the dickens, guys? Come on.
Good news, it's because Cliff was off on a vacation, right?
Yes, I was off on vacation. I was out and about. So sorry about that, guys. We will try to impress you this time. So please stay around.
Absolutely.
Well, how are you doing, Matthew? What have you been doing?
What have I been up to? I have been checking out Perl 6.
Is that a movie?
It's not. No, it's a programming language. So, Perl is one of the kind of classic programming languages. It's got Perl 5's been around for ages. It's used to be kind of the language that ruled the web before PHP took over and ate its lunch. But it's always been like a really fascinating language, quirky. It's got a terrible reputation, and I think it's kind of unfair. Modern Perl is nothing like the mess that people saw in like the year 2000. But what's interesting is in about 15 years ago, well, I guess 17, 18 years ago now, they started work on Perl 6. And it took 15 years, but they released the first version in 2015, and I've just never gotten around to looking at it. And it's not something I would probably use for work, but it's got some interesting features, and it does some things really right. And I think it might actually be the best language I've seen for certain domains, because of some of the features in it. So it's just kind of interesting.
Well, I know, I think I've told you this before, Matthew. When I worked at Coke in the financial area with that company, we used Perl all the time to rip through financial files, just because the speed that you could rip through those files and then be able to upload those into the database is just unheard of. It's just crazy.
Yeah, Perl was really the king of text processing. Right?
Yep.
Anytime you have complex text, because of the regular expression engine, which existed, that was there before any other language really supported it. That was the killer feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot,
we
people
did
got used to
of like .NET versus Perl, and my .NET code that I wrote couldn't touch the Perl. It just couldn't get that fast.
Yeah, for the right use case, Perl was definitely the right language, and it still is. People use it. It's widely used in academics. There's still massive, huge websites that are powered by it. But for the most part, it's been declining in popularity. What I think is interesting is Perl 6 has some killer features that I just haven't seen anywhere else, like math that actually works. And floating point math is basically wrong. You have to be super careful with it in every programming language.
You do.
And they did it right, so it kind of does what you think it should. And it's got this amazing grammar engine that like blows the roof off of anything I've seen. So again, if you're doing complex, basically any complex text where you have to parse complex text, it allows you to define a grammar to do that. And it's really clean and neat and kind of amazing. So I don't imagine it's going to see widespread adoption. It's not gonna, you're not gonna see it at the top.
Probably a niche kind of industries or niche type scenarios. Are you thinking right now?
I'm thinking science. I'm thinking like if you have heavy text processing needs, it might actually be pretty amazing for that.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, well, you mentioned this one, but financial.
Yeah.
Is probably one.
Financial.
Yeah, and then one other thing that I thought was really interesting is it's adopted all of the sort of the tried and true best asynchronous patterns. And so on top of those two killer features, you also have this sort of ability to very easily parallelize things. So, again, and like you could imagine you want to parse through massive amounts of data, as for example, in data science. Might be perfect for that.
Yeah, I could see that. That'd be a great spot potentially. So is Perl 6 ready to be used?
Yeah, it's been production ready since December 25th, 2015.
Wow, nice. That's cool.
Look, we
I
can
would
talk
say I'd
about
love to go check it out, but that is not on my checkout list, man.
No, it is not on your list. No.
It is
Well,
not, and it's going to be a long time before it does.
it's probably something I will not spend very much time with because I don't have any of those needs right now. But I did think it was super interesting, and like I just kept reading features, and I'm like, wow. The other thing is, it's probably the most complicated programming language I've ever seen.
Really?
So with all that power comes a pretty steep learning curve.
I believe it. I totally believe it.
So anyway, that's what I've been up to. Cliff, how about you?
Well, just like Zeineb alluded to, I was on vacation, so sorry about the show, guys, but I do, on occasion, leave. This time, I didn't have connectivity, similar to the time I was in Mexico trying to do this. But I actually went to Maine. We ate lots of lobster, and it was delicious. Oh my gosh, so good. And it was a soft shell lobster, not a hard shell lobster.
Interesting.
Yep. So we kind of touristed around Kennebunkport and really spent a lot of time in a campsite with zero Wi-Fi. So I had no connectivity for a week. So it was something. No internet. I think I cracked my computer open one time, Matthew, hoping to get a signal and was unable to get a signal whatsoever.
Well, it's good to get away from the keyboard sometimes.
It is. And then we stopped in Niagara Falls on the way back. I've never been there before, so that was pretty impressive. We did the boat and got soaked. And then I don't know if I mentioned this on the show or not, but we have a new puppy that's been taking up a little bit of time, named Chewy. So now we have a Chewy, a Yoda, and a Zoey. So Zoey's the Chihuahua, and Chewy and Yoda are two bigger fellas. So
that's so exciting.
Yeah. Well, you could call him Chewy, you could call him Poopy, you could call him Pee. It's all of them. It's what he is right now.
Is he one of the puppies that you fostered at one point?
He is one of the puppies that we fostered in the litter of 8. So we ended up keeping one of the puppies out of that group. It's just one of those. Is like I had forgotten the work involved with the puppy, and you get the puppy, and you're like, oh boy, it's some work. So, and Zeineb, when we talked, I'm going to ask you what you did, but when we had talked last, you had an opportunity to go potentially
to Tatooine.
to Tatooine. Did you end up doing that or not?
Well, the conference happened, let's see, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, less than 2 days. And sadly, there was no follow-up on that invitation. I think they ended up getting different speakers, so I did not end up going to Tatooine. But winter is the time to go because it gets super hot in the summer. So I think I'll still be able to go to Tatooine, and I'll definitely share photos then because it looks just as amazing.
All right. So what have you been up to, Zeineb?
Oh man, it was. Well, here's the thing. I have a friend whose father is a farmer, and so we went with her to the middle of nowhere to collect almonds. And I should have known it would be kind of scary because it was after sunset. So we got lost on the way, and we ended up in this strange graveyard at 10 p.m. There's no light. It was out of the city. It was the countryside. There's nothing. She takes a wrong turn, and up there with the front lights, there's just a bunch of graves, and everyone just screams. So we ended up picking almonds at
in the graveyard.
Well, no, her farm is pretty close, but there's an interesting story behind the graveyard that would take up way too much time to podcast.
So is it better to pick almonds at 10 p.m. at night? I've never picked almonds before.
Well, I mean, we have an almond tree right here, right outside the house. I would say it's only better because one of the people with you will start whistling the Jason song. in the middle of the night, and then you'll just see a random. It gets better at night. There are better stories to tell.
I bet there
I see.
are.
It's a better experience.
Absolutely, and then you get to munch on the almonds, so I'm not complaining.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that, there's been some feedback, right?
We did. We've got a little bit
Yeah.
of feedback. So just a side note, if you've got feedback, please feel free. You can shoot us a message at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com, or you can find us on Twitter at GearForge IoT. But I wanted to thank Patrick Burma for reaching out. He wanted to share the Vantiq platform, and that is VANTIQ.com. So take a look at it. We're going to chat with, or I'm going to chat with Patrick to learn more about the platform. But if you're curious about a platform with regards to IoT development, take a look at Vantiq. So again, it's VANTIQ.com. So thank you, Patrick, for reaching out. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We also have a show sponsor. Would you believe it?
What?
We do indeed. Our show is sponsored by GearForge Software. GearForge Software is an IoT consultancy that works with companies that are ready to make their company smart. If you are looking for a partner that will live, eat, and breathe your project, then look no further than GearForge Software. You can learn more at gearforgesoftware.com. And thanks so much to our show sponsor.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I like
thank
the
you.
swag that I got.
I do too. Some amazing shirts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time for some news, you guys.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I am ready.
It's been a while.
I feel like it has.
So we just wanted to bring a really quick update. We reported on Chirp a few weeks ago. And if you remember correctly, Chirp was all about transmitting data via audio, right?
Correct.
That's what the SDK was. And it looks like hitting the news this last week, they are basically connecting this to Microsoft Azure. I'm not sure the details of this, but we did think it was newsworthy, so I wanted to mention it. And there's an article, I'm sure you can find numerous press releases about this. There's an article on internetofbusiness.com explaining kind of the outline of what's going on, and a video up on YouTube that you can, it's called Chirp Your Device into Azure IoT Central. So you can check it out.
Oh, nice. Or you could chirp it out.
You can chirp it out. So Zeineb, want to
Yes.
tell us about how insurers are using IoT?
Well, I mean, if you're like me or Frederick Pohl here, the writer of the article, if you have a really old house that sometimes gets flooded by the evil dishwasher, then you might be excited about the smart way for insurers to leverage IoT in smart homes. So what this is basically about is an insurance company, Travelers Insurance, has a partnership with Notion to provide customers with IoT sensors so that they can minimize and prevent damage to homes by automatically reporting problems. And so this article is all about talking about all the ways that the sensors can do that. And what you can do is have around the house like moisture sensors, maybe noise sensors, things like that, to help you discover problems before they happen, in addition to potentially fixing them. The problem he mentions is the evil dishwasher, where it ruined the entire floor and everything like that. So he mentions that it might have been better if it either alerted him to the problem at the beginning. It would be a very simple sensor for moisture, or it would have actually stopped the dishwasher halfway through, so it would just stop the problem spreading further. And it's very interesting because you think it's kind of like a kind of an obvious solution, but it's not even widespread yet. So what do you think?
It's interesting. You know, when I think of insurers, I think about like, what is it called, Cliff? Actuarial tables?
Yeah.
Where basically they gather a bunch of data about people generalized, right?
Yeah.
And because basically they're trying to sort of they're trying to sort of outwit the risks, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to understand how to make money off of this business. And so I mean, the first impression is, don't you think IoT would be great for insurers just because of the data?
Yeah.
Well, and I actually spoke with a insurance company, oh gosh, when was that, Matthew? A couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
And they're interested in it from an agricultural standpoint.
Really?
Yeah, so they were really looking at it and they were thinking of a way to essentially get ahead of the market by leveraging some IoT aspects. They know it's going to cost, but it would essentially allow them to be kind of known for the smart side of things and
Mhm.
reduce paperwork and things like that by leveraging IoT.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, I think the hard part is it's like you've got to get a relationship between the insurer and so this is more of a business scenario is what I'm thinking here, Matthew. You need to find some way to make it so that way the insurance company essentially sponsors. It makes me think of like Progressive, right? Where
Yeah.
if you put that little device on your car and it shows that your driving habits are better, they're willing to give you a discount on your car insurance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My mother-in-law has that, except I think it's through State Farm, but
Oh,
same
sure.
concept.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, exactly. So in my head, it's like if you had these devices in your house, right, and maybe the insurance company gives you a break off a price or something like that, but if you have this, they would give you a discount off of insurance
Mm-hmm.
because they know it's being actually monitored um, by, let's say, another company or something like that. So I wouldn't see the insurance company actually doing the monitoring, but I'm sure they could.
Mhm.
But it reminds me of like a security company or something like that, but more of like a company that their job is just to monitor for like fire or any of this other stuff.
So are you saying that the infrastructure for something like this could already be set up through security companies?
I think I don't know why it couldn't, right? Because a lot of them already have devices and
Mm-hmm.
way to communicate back to their system, and they already have a system in place with folks that are actually monitoring. I really
Yeah.
think that might be a good spot if they,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if they're even thinking about this.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I have a security system, and our
Is
like
it
car-
called Three Dachshunds? Is that the
no,
name of your security firm?
it's not the Dachshunds, no.
Oh, sorry.
But
Okay.
they serve as a second layer of
Ah,
defense.
okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the we've got we've got alarm system through ADT,
Yep.
and our fire alarm and carbon monoxide are also hooked up to that. I
Sure.
don't know why you couldn't have other sensors though, right? Like I was just thinking about what if in your attic, like along the roof line, you had moisture sensors,
Sure.
So if even the smallest amount of moisture, something you wouldn't normally notice, right? Because it hasn't leaked that far, but it would show up on a sensor that might be able to trigger an alert and say, hey, you better check the attic. And
Well,
before all the damage is done.
my sister, her washer did something very similar to this article where they were talking about the dishwasher,
Mm-hmm.
where they started it and it ended up going crazy and it ended up flooding all the way into their basement. So, I mean, if they would
Oh,
have had something just on the floor in their laundry room, it would have picked it up,
Hmm.
like on the back of the washer itself.
absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know why you couldn't, you would think that would be something you could hook right up to an existing like ADT.
Yep.
Yeah, I would think so.
And I mean, with almost everything that we discuss here, there's always a security issue about privacy and all that, but I'm not seeing that being a problem here.
No, I think most folks would, they're as long as it's not like tracking other stuff, if it's really just about alerting you to an issue. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
from a business standpoint, this sounds like an opportunity. If I'd be shocked if someone's not already doing this, Matthew.
Yeah, for the
Yep.
right company, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. That's really interesting.
Yeah, great find.
So, Cliff, how's IoT helping marketers?
Cool.
Yeah, really interesting here. And a part of my life, I live some marketing a little bit, and it looks like it's coming back to the concept of your retailers trying to figure out ways to leverage IoT devices to gather data and enrich essentially the customer's overall experience.
Hmm.
Right?
So what kind of data?
Well, I think that's really, I mean, the interesting piece that really doesn't dive into some of the specifics in the article itself around the data pieces, um, as far as that's concerned. But I think it's reminds me more of the geofencing that you and I have talked about, Matthew. So you go to a store, it's geofenced, they know you come in, and maybe they track your where you're at within the store if you're always going to the clearance racks, right? Well, then from a marketing standpoint, it would probably make sense to start sending you some digital marketing like email about sales specifically on clearance. Or if you're always going to, let's say, I don't know, shoes. Well, let's maybe increase your shoes advertisements. Don't leave out the rest because there are probably opportunities with secondary items, but you could really cater to that customer within that. The big thing that they talk about here is don't be the Furby, creepy kind of creepy factor. So you creep the customers out because, again, it comes back to the information about what is being tracked, right? And then also about what is being hacked. So yeah, so I mean, it talks about here, it's like the introduction of Furby gave rise to a series of smart toys that can listen to conversations and watch activity using cameras.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all.
Yeah,
No, not whatsoever, right?
No.
And I'm sure that security-wise they're not awesome, but it's like, hey, start small, focus on a concept that you can actually then drive additional marketing, like from a digital standpoint, to potentially cater to that customer. And if you do this properly, it shouldn't be any additional overhead because it's all programmatically done, Matthew.
That's
So
cool.
the way they look at it is an opportunity to increase revenue by essentially leveraging a lot of the infrastructure you already have, but maybe connecting a few more dots.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much information you can get just by following a customer around the store. Because they stop for too long, we don't buy anything that's a problem, the placement of products, things like that can be easily changed, and it's not necessarily invasive, so long you're not doing the weird Furby stalking.
Yeah, precisely.
The weird Furby stalking.
The weird Furby stalking.
You gotta do the tasteful stalking.
Yeah,
exactly. It's much more subtle and hard to notice.
Yeah. Yes.
So I did want to just mention this next article really quickly. I don't think there's much to discuss here, but there was the news this week that Microsoft and Amazon are kind of, I guess they're rolling out some kind of partnership in which they're going to allow Alexa and Cortana to talk to each other, more or less. So so you're going to be able to access features, from one to the other, essentially. I don't know at what level these will share technology, but I thought it was interesting. And the article, Zeineb, that you found on this from, again, internetofbusiness.com, mentions that this is probably due to the fact that they're worried about Google. Google had that big announcement this year, right? Where they displayed that the assistant making the call. We talked about it on the show.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, they were booking the
hair appointment.
The hair appointment, right? And it's almost creepy how good it was.
It sounded like. So here's what I want to do, Matthew. I want to teach a new skill so that I come home and they're bickering back and forth and
that would be so cool.
Like sending vulgarities back and forth and just battling it out. I think that would be freaking hilarious.
Well, and you remember we reported on that Alexa-powered whiskey decanter a few weeks ago. So that could get in the mix too, because it was supposed to be kind of sassy. So
oh yeah, that'd be great. Come on, all your IoT devices are fighting.
Exactly.
They'd be like asking Cortana to do something, and Alexa would be like throwing sass.
I love it.
Alexa gets sassy.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Again, I don't have a whole lot of place for these technologies in my life. I do not use voice recognition very much at all.
Neither do I.
But my son does, and so it'll be interesting to see once these kids grow up. That technology is going to become more and more central. So.
I would think so, potentially.
Yeah, probably. So this next article is about autonomous cars. Basically, this is there was a survey done by the Brookings Institute,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and I'm going to just put this whole thing in a nutshell because there are kind of lots of details that I think probably aren't very interesting. And if you're interested in them, you can go read the article. But essentially, they've been doing these surveys, and there was a tendency toward, users were feeling more likely to ride in an autonomous vehicle. And then all of a sudden, there's been a decrease. And so that seemed notable, basically, that now that the technology is getting out there more, maybe our comfort level with it is less. And I wonder, there have been some really high profile cases over the last year or two where autonomous vehicles have done the wrong thing and somebody's died, and or people got lazy. Like, I don't remember which manufacturer it is, but one of them has a semi-autonomous mode where you still have to drive it, but it kind of does most of the work for you. But I think the problem there is, I want to say it's, what's the big electric car?
Tesla.
Tesla. I feel like it was Tesla. But it was like not, it's not fully autonomous. You can't stop driving. You still have to be the driver. But I think my concern about that is it's easy to sort of get lazy, right? It's like, well, it does most of the work. And so I wonder if just the reality of some of these things happening has changed people's opinions on it.
I would love a self-driving Porsche. So if you want to get me one, Matthew, please do.
All right. I'll put that on your Christmas list.
No, actually, I mean, I would just be happy having adaptive cruise control at this point. That's
right.
That would be enough for me to make me happy. I don't know if I need an entirely self-driving car. It sounded really cool. I've watched a lot of videos where you see them driving and everything else. I don't know. That's intriguing.
So I think this will ultimately be awesome and way safer when they get it all figured out. I mean, it's probably way safer now, honestly, because people are just crazy.
Well, in my head, I see a future where it's like, you don't even own a car, right? You just dial up a car when you need it. It drives yourself to you, and you don't have to worry about that. That's what I see in the future.
No, I like that a lot.
I mean, we're maybe 60 years out from that, but God, that'd be great.
Zeineb, what about you? Would you ride in one?
I mean, I would, just not where I live. It's basically New York on steroids, because I see my mom driving. It gets very colorful.
Yeah.
Really?
I bet.
The taxis are crazy. Everything is quite crazy, and you have to maneuver, which is why I haven't gotten to getting my own permit yet.
Well, I was telling Cliff a few weeks ago a story about one of our trips to San Francisco for work. I was out there with a coworker, Steven, and we took a cab, and we got the craziest cab driver. I mean, we thought we were going to die, and he was definitely high on something. It was terrible. We were just convinced like that we're not going to make it. We did make it, but I think about that, and it's like I would way rather have a robot drive me than that guy. So I would totally do it. I
mean, I definitely had my friend drift in his car in the middle of the highway. So.
We were down in Savannah, Georgia, with some friends, and very similar scenario to that, Matthew. The guy that picked us up, he had definitely enjoyed something prior to picking us up, and I personally would have preferred just an autonomous vehicle at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well, it is, it is really interesting technology, and I'll be curious to see how it winds up kind of playing out. I mean, legally too. I heard, I was listening to another podcast. This was probably 6 to 12 months ago, and they were talking about, I believe it was Mercedes, that basically, given it had been leaked, I guess, that their sort of autonomous vehicle technology was designed basically if it had to make a choice between the safety of the driver and the safety of somebody who wasn't in the car, it would sort of choose in favor of the person in the car, not not the pedestrian, right?
That's, I mean, that's
But
really interesting because those scenarios arise.
yes, and think about that. It's sort of an interesting, like, philosophical question, isn't it? Like, as a
Oh,
programmer,
wow.
I have to program it to
That's a
decide,
great scenario.
right? I thought it was
Because,
super
like,
interesting.
what if a bicyclist jumps out in front of you, and from a car standpoint, you know, based off of calculations, you can't slow down. You could turn to the right and hit a wall, right?
Yeah,
But that potentially could injure your passenger.
that
Or
is
you
exactly
could
the
go,
scenario.
or well, not even wall. Let's say you're in the middle lane of traffic.
Hmm.
You could run into cars on both sides. I mean, I could see that happening.
Yes, or you can run over the biker. Programmer who designed the
Wow.
decision algorithm makes that decision. And so there's a product manager somewhere at the car company making that choice. And that's interesting and crazy, right?
It is. I mean,
So,
wow.
like, I feel like there should be a TV show about this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's really interesting, Matthew.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was, it was just interesting to see that the support for autonomous cars, which had been increasing, has now sort of dropped. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So that's all of our news. If you do have any feedback for us, we would love to hear from you. You can shoot us a message at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com. Otherwise, you can find us on Twitter at GearForge IoT. And when I say us, I really mean Zeineb.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing. Thank you, Zeineb.
Yes, thank you,
Manages
Zeineb.
the Twitter and really appreciate it. And Matthew, on a side note, I believe
Yeah,
we're on YouTube now. Is that correct?
that is true.
Yes.
We do have a channel on YouTube. We are working to encode our back episodes, our old episodes, so those will be up there too. But we are posting all the new episodes to YouTube. So you can look for us there too if that's more convenient for you. All right, well, that just about wraps things up. Do you guys have anything fun planned for the weekend? Zeineb, how about you?
Oh, I wish I could. The thing is, when I say I'm going to the beach, everyone thinks it's fun. The sun disagrees. So we're gonna try to use up all the sunscreen, spend the weekend at the beach, even though it seems cloudy and it seems there's a storm coming up, which is very strange. But it's gonna be a fun weekend.
Sounds
What about
great.
you, Matthew?
Well, so I have a subscription to O'Reilly's Safari Bookshelf, which is, it's like technical books online, basically. And I have a whole bunch of books shortlisted that I want to take a look at. But I just haven't had time the last few months. So that is definitely on my weekend list. I want to take a look at some, maybe read about some new technologies or something that I've just been interested in. So
That sounds like a ton of fun. You have to let us know. I know I'm going to ask you specifically which ones you sound cool, because then I just wait and then I'll read up on them.
yeah, I've got so many. I mean, I probably have so many bookmarked that even if I did nothing but read, I would never finish all of them before I die. But I'll get a few anyway.
Oh,
Good
yeah,
for
that's
you.
how I feel about my bookshelf too, to be fair.
Cliff, how about you?
Well, for those of you who think that I'm 20 something, I am not, because I actually have a grandson.
Wait, really?
I know, Zeineb. It's hard to believe that I'm not 20 with
I
my
assumed you were
youthful
at most 42.
mind. No, I'm actually 43, I think, and I actually have
Wow.
a grandson. So
Such an old man, Cliff.
I know. So Skyler, he's coming over tonight, and I tell you, it's been a long time since I've watched a baby,
Yeah.
especially overnight. I'm a little foreign to that.
You kind of forget, don't you?
Oh gosh, I don't know the last time I've changed a diaper, Matthew.
Yeah.
I
So
sadly
this,
do.
oh, there you go. So this should be pretty interesting. We're watching them tonight and bringing them back to my daughter in the morning. So we'll have breakfast, and I'm looking forward to it. Just I've got a little apprehension.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Get a little, little case of the nerves there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so much more comfortable with the puppy than I am with the baby.
Oh, it's like riding a bike, Cliff.
Great.
Worst case scenario, there's Google. So what's the worst
That's
thing?
right.
Remember that, Matthew, and we'll bring Spawn over to your house for a night.
No, I didn't volunteer. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. We hope you'll join us again for next week's show. And until then, so long and be well. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.